This is simple strategies for bringing daily writing into your classroom. Gabriela and Stephanie are our two wonderful presenters. Gabriela is an English 2 honors teacher at Rosie Sorrell School of Education and Social Services in Townview Magnet Center, which is part of Dallas ISD in Texas. And Stephanie is an AP ELA teacher at Edmond Santa Fe High School in Edmond School District in Oklahoma. Um, and I am Tess. I head marketing for Writable. And this webinar is sponsored by Writable. So Writable guides your best instruction. It helps you grow great writers, and it provides faster prep and better feedback to get your students writing every day. So we provide responsive assignments that save time and meet your unique instructional goals. There's over 1,000 customizable assignments, differentiated assignments, ability to create your own assignments, assessments, and rubrics. We really help to engage our readers and our writers by building a revision mindset, using a research-backed program that's focused on student engagement and growth. Student choice is really important alongside AI supports that help students in the moment. Um, we're really proud of better, faster feedback. So we provide earlier and more targeted feedback to students with live conferencing abilities, a really simplified grading flow that connects with your LMS, and then a whole suite of AI tools like Grammar Aid and Revision Aid and automatic grading and originality check. And we also recommend what you should do next for your students based on how they're performing. So we help you reach that goal, whatever it is, whether it is getting students writing every day, whether it's just increasing the amount that they're writing or improving their foundational skills. And we'll talk about some of the strategies that Stephanie and Gabriela are really using in their classroom to achieve those goals. So if you are curious to try Writable, teacher accounts are always free. And we also have a link that you can use to actually create your first assignment with us. So if you would like some support in creating an assignment or an assessment or a rubric, we are here to help you learn. And let's get started. So Gabriela is an eager first-year teacher at Dallas ISD Alternative Certification Program. She has a bachelor's degree in political science from Brigham Young University. She's traveled the world, over 20 countries, and speaks 3 languages, English, German, and Spanish. She has a passion for teaching and writing. She genuinely loves her job and feels excited to learn and grow alongside her students. And she believes every student has unique talents and a valuable perspective to offer. I know I have been so impressed with Gabriela as a teacher. And Stephanie has been teaching English for 12 years in Oklahoma City suburban public schools. She has a bachelor's degree in secondary education, English education, and is a certified AP English literature and composition instructor and is an experienced AP exam reader for the College Board. She currently teaches AP freshman and senior English literature. And she is also the advisor for the award-winning school newspaper, The Howler. Stephanie believes in the importance of student voice and using writing to amplify their voice and purpose. And in her spare time, Stephanie enjoys practicing aerial skills. Ooh, that's exciting. And can often be found performing throughout the city. Oh, that's fantastic, Stephanie. So I'm so excited to introduce these two amazing, fantastic, enthusiastic teachers who are getting their students writing in really creative ways. So this is simple strategies for bringing daily writing into your classroom. Uh, and we also have a resource document. This has the slides in it. This has the link if you would like to book a meeting to help create your first assignment. This has some assignments that Stephanie and Gabriela are going to be sharing that they use. And Ashley and Heidi will be sharing this in the chat. So, our agenda for today, we're going to be talking about setting some realistic instructional goals, which is really the first step in getting students writing is goal setting. Choosing the right assignments for your classroom and to help meet your goals. Starting small to get those daily wins, those daily writing moments. How we implement impactful feedback to help move students forward. How we measure the success And then we're going to take some questions. And again, if you have any questions, you can either click that question icon at the top of your screen, or you can just ask your question in chat. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Stephanie and Gabriela. And while they start talking, I would really love to hear about your current instructional goal. So they're going to talk about their goals, but I would love to hear about what your goals are, and especially what brought you here today. So passing it to you, ladies.
Okay, well, we
Hey.
talked about some sample goals for just getting our kids ready each year. We do want our kids writing every day. Starting small with sentences to paragraphs, and then finally leading up to essays. I teach freshmen, so they're always like, oh, a whole essay. Start small, and then they'll get into it. Writing stamina is very important, especially for the students I teach with AP, because they do have to be able to sit down and write for 3 hours. And so building that early on is important. Student agency, we've done a lot of just opening, letting them talk about what they want to talk about. Kids love to talk about themselves. So they have a lot of freedom there. Fundamental writing, grammar, of course. In Oklahoma, we use the ACT as one of our state assessments. And so early on with freshmen, we are really hammering those grammar skills. So that really helps us there. And of course, that leads us to our state assessments and district benchmarks. We have common formative assessments that we use between our PLC meetings and our individual groups throughout the school. So that is, the baseline of where we want our kids to be looking into the school year.
Awesome. I'm seeing a lot of fellow teachers who want to increase stamina and implement writing early. So this seems really in alignment with what our attendees are also trying to focus on. So, Stephanie, how are you actually goal setting in your classroom?
So as I mentioned, we do work in professional learning communities in our district. So each grade level does have a team goal that we set. One thing that's nice about Writable that I found is the ability to create and share assignments through Writable. And so we will, each month have a teacher create something and then share it out and be able to work on that together. So all of our students are getting the same assessment, so we can get that really accurate data that we need for improvement. And that kind of ties in line with those common formative assessments that we do every 9 weeks. Team grading is also a great thing that I found, especially when it comes down to grading our mock AP exam. That's nice for us to see how our individual students are doing, and me to be able to look at another teacher's classroom. Diagnostics. There are a lot of diagnostics in Writable. Sorry, my lights turned off. That are available, and that helps us gauge those goals that we need to create for our students. And of course, my big, sticking point is that AP trajectory. So we do want our pre-AP students working toward those really specific skills that they need in AP Lang and AP Lit, and of course, building that stamina. So we always look as a team level, what do we want our kids to do?
And Stephanie, I know you have a lot of the same goals, but also because especially in Texas, you are really tied to Texas standards. How are you goal setting in your classroom?
Talking to me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Gabriela.
So, um, what I do for setting goals, and I have to reiterate that I'm a first year teacher, but I feel like I've learned a lot from the teachers around me, teachers like Stephanie who have been there for a while. And one thing that I was learning from the very beginning is that you begin with the end in mind. You have to think about what do you expect to see your students writing by the end of the year. And a good place to start is reviewing state standards or the state benchmark assessments that they're going to need to meet so that you know where you are going. In Texas, we have TEKS, right? In other states, I know you have Common Core, but you know what you expect to see your students doing by the end of the school year. So with 10th graders, which is what I teach, I know they're going to be answering literary analysis questions with short constructed responses according to a specific rubric. So that's one final goal that I have in mind. The next thing you need to do is measure a student's current ability, right? Just like Stephanie was saying about those diagnostic assessments with the pandemic. And I know that there has been some struggle with, getting students caught up to where they need to be. We really can't take anything for granted. So one thing that you can do, like that I did at the beginning of the school year, was an icebreaker writing assignment just to really see where the students are with writing. So something fun, like tell me about one thing you did this summer, include as many details as you can that appeal to the five senses. Use proper grammar to really stretch them, see what they can do. You start with those small initial writing assignments, and it really reveals where the students are in their writing skills right now. And then you can meet the students where they are at. If they need a refresher on something as simple as writing complete sentences, I used an assignment that was just there in Writable that just really was a refresher for the students. Obviously, they know how to do it, but like I said, you really can't take anything for granted. So you can expose them to more vocabulary to improve their diction if that's what they need, or a direct reteach on paragraph structure. You just have to meet their instructional needs where they're at. Um, Ultimately, our instructional goals are informed by those students' instructional needs. So now that you know where you're going and you know where you're starting, you can begin to narrow the scope of your goals and set small, realistic goals that can guide your students to success. For example, I know that I want my students to write a personal narrative essay. That's kind of one of my instructional goals. And I want them to really include sensory details. By the end of the school year, I expect them to be able to do this. And I can see from my initial writing assignments that most of the students do not have a strong grasp on how to write with sensory details. So I set a goal to have my students create that vivid imagery using sensory details, things that appeal to the five senses. And I begin to meet that goal by creating short writing assignments, even daily writing assignments like the Writable high fives. And it gives those students that crucial opportunity to practice every day and strive to meet those learning goals.
So I know once you have those goals that are set, choosing the right assignments to actually move your students along. And I know the right assignments are really different based on your grade level, your state, what those goals were. So what I am going to do is I'm actually going to show you some of the stuff assignments that Stephanie and Gabriela are actually using in their classroom. Those assignments are available for you to use as well too in the resource guide. So I am just going to screen share right inside of here. So we are in Writable right now. Writable has over 1,000 assignments and prompts for you to choose from. You can select your grade band up here. You can see all the different types of assignments you can choose from. You can scroll. You see right now we're featuring our high fives. We add a new one every week. These are really topical about what's happening this week. Native American Heritage Month assignments. Grammar activities are always really popular in the first part of the year as we're trying to build fundamental skills for students. You can choose skills practice by genre, your short response by genre. Stephanie and Gabriela both use HMH curriculums. Your HMH curriculum is already built into Writable. You've got Cricket and KQED and Time for Kids media. Really just everything you can think of, or you can create your own assignment in Writable. And you can also see all of your state assessment practices down here. So for instance, Stephanie is in Texas, and so she is using some assignments to prep for STAR. I know if we've got any Texas folks out here, STAR changed this year, and I know some other states as well are updating their assessments. So you're going to find the most up-to-date practice within Writable. We also this year introduced something called Journeys. And so I do want to pass this over to Ashley to talk a little bit about Journeys.
Hey, thanks, Tess. Okay, so let's have a look at journeys. So, journeys are a collection of suggested assignments that help achieve your instructional goals by just kind of guiding teachers towards what's next. What's the next step in the writing journey? So, it starts with a really short skill aligned writing prompt, which we call a high five. And then it progresses towards skills practice and mini lessons, which all will lead up to an extended response. So there are 8 journeys in total. 6 are genre specific and 2 are cross curricular. So I'm going to have Tess start by looking at response to information. So we're going to select from the drop down that second option, and then we're going to click into that first step in the journeys, the high five skills quick writes. So what we have in here are quick writes that can be used for quick formative assessment, kind of like Gabriela talked about. Sometimes you just want to get in and see, how are my students writing? Can they demonstrate comprehension? Can they analyze text elements? And so we have an option to drop down, and there's a sample prompt there. And then up in the right-hand corner, you can preview it as a student would see it. And then next to that, oh yeah, go ahead. Thank you. So right there, you can see what it's going to look like for students. There's an anchor chart on the left. There's some instruction on the right, the prompt, and then a rich text editor for students to click into. So this is completely made for you if you want it to be, or you can bring the prompt and we have everything else set up there for you. So you can go ahead and close out of the preview, and you can also look at, oh, sorry, would you go back just really quickly? Sorry about that. I just wanted to show the PD resources as well. So if you have PD questions about, how to teach this or how to assess this, there's these great little videos in here for, not for everything, but for some of the high five quick writes that will give a little guidance. So thank you, Tess.
Yeah, this is really great for if you're looking for guidance on how to reach your goal. So I know some teachers are building their own pathway, and some teachers have a curriculum that is built for them that you want to wrap around, or sometimes you're really trying to do this on your own, and we're really here to provide that support both from PD and the assignment level. Even if you're teaching science or social studies, we're all teaching students to write. So I want to go in and show some actual assignments that Stephanie and Gabriella are using. So this assignment is one of Stephanie's AP assignments. And I'd love to hear, Stephanie, from you about this assignment.
Well, we're really starting to get into practicing for the exam that they take in May. So with this assignment, I actually gave them a prompt to plan their thesis with. And then in the next prompt, I had them go ahead and write out the entire essay. So I was able to do peer reviews and self-reviews on separate pieces of the essay itself. So I was kind of building up to that whole essay. Even with seniors, when you say, hey, we're going to write an essay, they still, so I try to give them just, we'll start with the thesis first and move from there. And so for this particular one, of course, they had to write the thesis on the first prompt and then come back into it again after review from their peers and their self-review, and then go ahead, rewrite whatever they needed to fix with that thesis, and then continue on through the essay. What I think for all AP teachers at my school that we've really appreciated about this is the rubrics are the exact rubrics from College Board. So these are what we want to get our students used to looking at and writing toward. You can, with these rubrics, modify the points, where we're not going to take all the points at once, in the first semester, because they're still practicing. So I can change the weighting on those points so where they're not, losing big points because we're still in practice. And of course, next semester, when they've had that practice, we can start adding in, actual point weighting levels. Sophistication is always a tough one. And so early on, I just remove that from the rubric and we just focus on the thesis and the body paragraph. So with this particular assignment, they had to write toward this poem, and they had a self-review, a peer review, and then, of course, my review.
Awesome. And I know you're talking about self-review and peer review. When a student is reviewing their own work or another student's work, they do get that guidance for how to actually grade themselves and others with those hovers that you're seeing, because obviously students don't automatically know how to give feedback, and we really want to guide impactful, authentic feedback, because a student just saying, "Oh, that was great," isn't going to be helpful in the long run, right? And it's right next to their reading as well. So now I'm going to go, and I would love to show this assignment that Gabriela started the year off with. So this is a really great short assignment to just get students writing.
Right. So
Gabriela,
I gave this one on the first day of school. So they came in. I know the students were probably expecting us to just, only do icebreakers, little get to know you games. But I really wanted them to have this expectation that when you walk into the classroom, you're going to be writing in this class. And so getting them onto Writable on the very first day was a good way to set that pace. And I could come up with this prompt myself. There were other prompts I could choose from if I wanted to just choose one that was already made, or I could just come up with one that I liked. And then the rubrics are pre-made, or you can edit them. I like that. As a first year teacher, having these pre-made rubrics was really helpful because I don't always know what's best instructional practices. And this has really guided me, even just in how to grade. So, what am I looking for in some sort of simple narrative, first person point of view, and exploring a significant personal experience? And one thing I really loved about this assignment is that it helped me get to know my students right from day one. They were very eager to share about, and they had so many different varied personal experiences. I got to learn more about their families, or more about what they were expecting this year, or just the fun things that they did over the summer. And of course, it was extremely helpful to see where they are in their writing. Some of them, they were just at very different levels. And I was able to see the things that they all had in common, the things that they all needed to work on. And that really helped me set my instructional goals for the year.
awesome. And I know we had a lot of elementary teachers, so I do want to point this out, that in Writable's text editor, which I know like isn't available in Google, students can actually record a video live in Writable. So if your students are not proficient in typing yet and you still want them to respond to something, or if you want to have this be like an image response, you also have that option in Writable for that. And teachers can also do a video lesson in here as well. So all that whole video, audio, commenting on their work, submitting their work, having it be part of the assignment is also a part of Writable that is really fantastic, especially for our elementary students. And then, Gabriela, I know now you mentioned earlier moving on to that big personal essay assignment that is in multiple pieces. So, can you talk us through a little bit about this, and especially your planner?
Yes. So, like Stephanie had said, when you tell a student you're going to be writing an essay, 500 to 1,000 words, immediately, deer in headlights. They're stunned by that. They don't know what they're going to do, and they can get so left behind, if you don't chunk out the assignment. And I really like that Writable makes it possible to chunk out the assignment as much as you want. You can include a reading, and then an organizer, and then the actual writing portion. And so I made a graded assignment for each one. I had deadlines that they were supposed to do this planner. And so if you go to that planning tab, you can see I was able to just choose this personal narrative planner. It came straight out of HMH basically. So we are really integrated with HMH. My students access Writable through HMH, although now they also can access it directly from Writable. And this helped us. Our unit 2 from HMH was all about perspective and reflecting on ourselves. And we wrote a personal narrative based off of a mentor text that was in HMH. And so it really mirrored exactly what we were doing. And you see that at the bottom, you can include even sensory words. So the other thing that you're able to do that I really liked is model this as if you were one of the students. So I went through this entire planner with them as if I were a student, and how I would what I expected of them. And modeling that really helped. And then, of course, I could go through the rubric with them and show them exactly how they get a perfect score on this assignment.
I'm just
And
so if you wanted to model, so you just click assign to me, and I can actually show you that I'm just assigning this to myself, and I am modeling it right now as a student and really actually in that student experience. It's as easy as that. And as the teacher,
mhm.
I can just respond here.
Yeah, it was really helpful because I know with some platforms, things look different from the teacher view than they do from the student
Mhm.
view. And being
Mhm.
able to see exactly from the student view, when my student said, I don't know where to click, I could tell them, you click that blue button that says write. And then if you want to revise, you press that blue button that says revise. It's in the bottom right hand corner. And I was able to guide them through exactly because it was like I was in their shoes. And chunking it out, seeing where they are at the personal narrative planner, and being able to even give feedback really helped me so that none of the students were getting left behind. We didn't get to where some students had already written a full first draft and others hadn't even begun the planner because I could see where they were all at the same time.
Absolutely, and you can even see that you're in at the student view, the student can chat directly with the teacher if they have any issues, and as the teacher, um, I'm gonna go right back into my teacher account, gonna go into my assignment, and I can see, that my students have been, writing, and I can respond to myself right in here. I can see how my students are doing. Obviously, this isn't a filled out assignment, but all of that information and all of their writing is live right as the student is writing for the teacher. So I know this can be really helpful too, that everything, all their writing is just going to be on one screen. And so I know starting small, like you talked about, Gabriella with the the assignment right after summer break. Stephanie, I know starting small, you also use high fives. I would love to hear sort of what are your strategies for getting students writing every day? What are your starting small steps?
Okay. Do you want me to take that?
Well, both of you, yeah, both of
Okay.
you would be great.
I am a big fan of bell work, just getting them in the routine of coming in and doing something. So on the board, I will have, go to Writable, answer the prompt. We just finished the Odyssey with freshmen, and so they had to write a personal narrative. And I was reminded when Gabriela was talking, or Tess was talking about it being live. The neatest thing about that was I could see them writing their essays and I could go and chat with them. Hey, don't forget you have to italicize, don't forget you have to do these things in your essay. And we could fix it as they were going. But for the, each day bell work, just getting them in, getting them to write, short daily, goals to make that big literacy. I'm sorry, my lights go off automatically. I don't know how to fix that. Um, and keeping it, reasonable and doable. We have just such a short amount of time in class that we want, to use as much of it as possible and make it worthwhile. So my each day, I am a firm believer in having something for them to do right when they come in, and it just makes it really easy because sometimes, listen, I don't plan everything, so it's nice just to pull, one of those daily, oh, well, I'll have them write about this today, So I it's right there for me, which is nice.
I like with chunking out the assignments, you can do a bit of writing every day because it's manageable. If your today is all you're doing is brainstorming, filling out the planner, one day we spent probably 25 to 30 minutes just writing a hook, writing the first sentence. It's nice to be able to really slow the pacing with the students. I personally have a tendency to go very fast and I'm like dragging my students along with me and expect them to keep up. But using, chunking out the assignments and being able to say, today, I just want you to write a hook. Just make it catchy. And then being able to go and give feedback to each student and say, that's a great hook. That's an interesting way to start the essay. And then to give students really, impactful feedback and say, that's not really what we're looking for in this hook. I want you to put me right into the story. Try it again, and then we're going over literally just the first sentence of that essay. It's a lot more manageable than saying write a really good engaging essay than just to say, hey, write one sentence that just brings the reader right into the story. And then, of course, with modeling the assignments, I modeled for them how to write a hook. And that really, I think, helps the students to visualize how they can be successful as well.
Absolutely. Modeling is so important, especially I know whether you're in high school or especially elementary school students where you're really trying to teach them that whole process is so helpful. So I know we've got some real student work here. I don't know if there's anything specific, Stephanie and Gabriela, you wanted to point out about your student work. Stephanie, I know this is one of your students.
Uh, This again just goes back to the ease of grading, you know, several essays in a timely manner. And what I found with this, and again, we just really got excited about these College Board rubrics because they match perfectly. And what I found is, you can highlight a certain section and line it up with the actual rubric item. Of course, you can make your own rubrics to fit whatever you need. You can adjust point levels, things like that. So what's nice here is if you look at this student, he did a self review and he said, "Hey, I did pretty good. I had a 92%." And then you see as we start moving down, we have a peer review. And the peer review reviewed him at 50%. And my kids always, they're afraid of people knowing, and so they won't say the things that need to be said about the writing. And it's nice here because it is anonymous. They can't see who's reviewing, and it doesn't show their name. It'll show me their name, but not the students. And so they're really able to give like that genuine feedback, not just, "Hey, great job, kid." And so with this, what I appreciated about this particular example is, she was honest in her review and, said there could be more here. You can use more direct quotes. And that also tells me that that student understands the writing process and understands what should be going into it. And so it's kind of a double whammy. It tells me what they know, what they don't know, what they're recognizing, what they're not. And as you can highlight that specific section or whatever, and then add your comment about what needs to be changed, what needs to look different. It'll also save comments as you go, so it's just you type in a couple of letters and it'll pop up comments that you use often, which does really help move that feedback process quickly, especially with the longer essays.
Awesome. Yeah, I did notice you were really utilizing that tying a comment to a rubric item and color coding it for a student, which I know can be really helpful for students, especially when you have a lot of comments. I know when I taught, I always was almost an over commenter on things, and sometimes you have to pare down. Um, so I know here, Gabriella, is some of your personal essay, real student writing. This one was, I see, some of the responses in your planner, right?
Yes. So this was something that, it would have taken us probably at least one class period just to write this personal narrative planner. And what I like about being able to leave comments is that it's really motivating for the students. They feel really good. I even overheard one student sharing with another, bragging, said, Miss Palacios said my writing was great. She really liked it. It means a lot to the students, and it gives you an opportunity. I mean, it's so easy to write a comment and I have 150 students. So, but it's easy to write to each and every single one of them if you want to. Hey, that was good. You're on the right track. Good writing. I'm excited to see where this goes. Um, that sensory words list, I told them just start writing all the things that come to mind when you think of this experience. And this was an interesting essay because the students did have to get kind of personal, although I did reiterate to them, it's not about writing about the most traumatic or dramatic thing that's ever happened to you in your life. It's not, what you have to do. It's about writing about something significant that impacts how you feel about other people. and or how you interact with others, or what you think about yourself now. And the real exercise was to see if you could make even just a simple experience come to life with your imagery that you create. And so this helped the students. I worked with many students just one on one, and I could ask them, okay, how did it start? What are we writing about? What happened next? Okay, and then how did you feel about that? And that got the students writing. Like those are questions that you can answer instead of just the prompt, which was, about how do we engage with others while staying true to ourselves. That's a lot more, difficult to unpack, but then breaking it down like this really helped. And if you go to the next slide, this is basically like the final product. And I'll just read her first line. The building was attached to a pirate themed fast food restaurant. It was perpetually empty and filled the surrounding air with a foreign murkiness. I just like got chills when I read that, when I saw what the student was able to produce. Um, and not every student's going to write at that level, but it was really amazing to see what the students were able to come up with when they had enough time to really break down every piece. I don't think that there was really any students that didn't have some sort of hook that they couldn't be proud of. Everybody wrote something that was, eye catching or had some good detail to it that really just painted that vivid image. And then we, could review that rubric and see, rubric item number 1, the introduction establishes the subject and situation and grabs the reader's attention. It was easy for me to see if they had done that. And then I knew if I was guiding them in the right direction or not. And this is the rest of her assignment. And this was one of the summer break ones.
Mhm.
One of the students shared about moving to a new place and a bit about how they felt about that. So just going back to what I said earlier, it was great to get a little window into who they are. You really want to find a way to connect with the students. I even had a student come up to me in class just last week and said, "Do you remember what I wrote in my summer writable?" And I I had to think for a second. I'm like, "I think so." And she goes, "That's the boy. He's in your 6th period." And I said, "Oh, how interesting." And it's just great to build this like camaraderie with the students. Um I don't know why, but reading it like this, it does help me to put that I remember it better this way, right? Than handing in like 100 little scraps of paper. I can go back and see, what did that student write again, and how did I respond to them? And it's a good exercise in just building a good classroom culture.
Yeah, and I know not opening a million tabs in Google Docs or, like you said, looking at a million pieces of paper can be really helpful, and for students to keep track of their work as well too, year over year. Okay, so we're trying to reach our goals, and obviously we are getting students writing, but without feedback, they can get blocked, right? Feedback is how we move our students forward. So I am really curious for all of our attendees, do you have enough time to give every student impactful feedback? How is your time situation going with feedback? I'm seeing all no votes. Oh, we've got 2 yeses. So, um, really, we're at, yeah, 75-85% no's. So I'm seeing a lot of no's. Is that, do you feel like that's consistent with, your time, Gabriella and Stephanie, or do you feel like you do have time to give feedback, or you've found methods to?
It's I think it's always a struggle. I think we as
Mhm.
teachers always wish we could give a little bit more, but um, I've kind of gotten into a good groove that I feel like I'm really connecting with, most of my students. I try not to leave anybody out. But there's always room for improvement for sure with having enough time to give students that really impactful feedback that you see them incorporate back into their writing.
Yeah. So I know some of the common types of feedback that teachers give in Writable are that chat feedback that we look like. that we looked at, and that guide grade screen just to give in the moment feedback, some audio video feedback, that rubric based feedback that Stephanie was giving where she was tying comments, AI based feedback so you can actually get automatic on demand grammar support, originality support, structure support, and then that peer and self review. But I also would love to hear from Gabriela and Stephanie, what are their real life strategies for giving feedback in their classroom? How are they actually going about doing it?
So,
Uh,
oh, sorry.
that's
You want
okay.
me,
Go ahead.
I'll take that first one if you want to take the
Okay.
second. So with the self and peer review, um, that's a really great way. Take some of that burden off yourself. If you have 30 students in the classroom, you don't have to be the only one giving feedback, nor should you, because students learn well from each other. They speak each other's language. They can connect in a way that we as teachers can't always reach them. They might have a way of explaining something even better than we do in a way that's going to really reach those students. And using the anonymous feedback is really helpful. I see that the students are never, they're never trying to be unkind, but they can be kind of, hesitant to say what they really think. And being able to give that anonymous peer review, I mean, first, really the self review, right? Students should look after their own writing first. They should see did I even try to follow the rubric? Was this my best work? Now that I'm looking at it again since last class period, what changes can I make? And then that peer review, and then the teacher review coming in to give that more impactful feedback, right? To make sure that they are on the right track. And the best way that I can give that specific feedback is by looking at my own rubric, right? What exactly am I expecting to see and where am I expecting to see it? And like Stephanie said, you can use that highlighting function. It helped me learn how to grade a student's writing, because just like what a student might feel when it comes to writing a whole essay, that's how I felt when I realized I had to grade all of these essays. I like to joke with my students, hey, if you think it's hard writing one essay, try grading 150. That's a task for a whole weekend. Not even Thanksgiving break if it's enough time. But if you are chunking out your assignments, you're letting the students do that peer review. I even found that the students, as they gave their peer review, helped inform what I needed to look for. If a student caught that, oh, they didn't develop this character enough, then that was the first thing I looked for. I said, did they make a revision to improve the character? And if I knew where to at least start, with the students writing.
I think another common complaint that I hear from a lot of teachers is, one, we don't have the time, and two, the kids don't look at the feedback anyway. So why bother? And so this, kind of creates that ownership where we know if they've looked at that feedback or not. Kids are so just want to write the final copy and be done with it. They don't want to do the rough draft. They don't want to do the planning. Whatever they write the first time is perfect and it's fine. And we know that it's not. But when we have that feedback moving in, we know that they're actually taking what we're saying, taking what their peers are saying, and making those revisions. And so it does, it allows for the teacher to want to give the feedback because we know that they're actually looking at it and doing things with it. With so many other things, we can, okay, go look at your feedback and, let me know, or, fix it. And then, we don't know if they've actually done it. We don't, and so that is one nice feature. Another thing that another teacher mentioned to me was the grammar aid feature. It corrects as they go, as they're writing, and gives, all types of style and things like that. And so we've really been pushing that because, again, we test on the ACT. And so we're wanting them to write clearly and concisely. And we're wanting them to use the proper, verbs and things like that. And so as they go, they're able to complete that grammar check through Writable, and it's popping up and working live basically as they go.
And I will show in a second on a screen, but the teacher actually gets a grammar aid score, and that's broken down by every kind of foundational grammar skill that it's on. And the student isn't just seeing a suggestion, but it's also getting pop-up videos and tips for why. And their options for changing things, and then again the teacher is getting that score and that insight, so you can see, are my students struggling on vocabulary, or do I have a group of students who are struggling on vocabulary, etc. So I know that can be really helpful. And sort of moving into data, while you may notice your students are writing more, right? That's why we're here. We want students to write more. That is something we may innately notice. Some of our other goals, we may also only really understand if we're hitting them by looking at data. So some of the things that you might use data for in real classrooms is seeing that instant success, seeing growth over time, and pulling some reports, knowing where to go next in your instruction based on the results of your past assignment, and also intervening when it matters most, which is while students are writing with what they're actually struggling with. So this is just a screenshot of Gabriela's assignment. You can see there's a grammar score, and if you were to hover, it would actually show like a breakdown very specifically of all these different skills. You can look at how students are doing by standard and skill, and an analysis of all your students. So you can actually get that real-time data in an assignment as students are writing. So I'm curious to both of you, how does data inform your planning when you're getting ready to teach students, or planning before an assignment?
So data, it definitely should drive your planning. It informs us where the students are. Um, Writing is a recursive process, right? It's the writing, the revising, the editing, and try again, start over, and do it again. With you build up the data over time. So starting from the very beginning with those diagnostic tests to your first big essay that you finally see the finished product, and then you do it again. So right now we're working on our next big essay, which is an explanatory essay. And I can look back and see what the students were doing last time, where they needed some of that help, and build it into this next assignment. Make sure that the rubric is more specifically capturing the things that I saw they struggled with last time, maybe something that I took for granted. And that helps me just to plan what I expect to see from the students.
And then, Stephanie, do you have an answer there, or do you want to answer perhaps how does data inform your feedback while students are writing their
Well,
essays?
usually we're using data for our PLC groups. So we'll give this common formative assessment, and then we'll all come together and meet, look at our percentages, talk about what teachers did that made their kids score 5% higher than the other teachers. And that, again, is that opportunity to kind of share those resources. Look at, what parts of grammar are some kids getting in classes and not. And so when we do that, we're able to say, hey, we're active and passive voice is a problem, but this teacher, her kid scored 96% and this, teacher had 93. Where, what did you do different or whatever? And so we usually use that data for planning how, if we need to reteach. Sometimes we'll even switch classes and, I'll teach another class for, a day, a certain skill or something if my kids, scored better. And so that's how we use data in our PLC and our team groups, just to make all the kids better, because it's not just my kids and their kids, it's everybody's kids, right? We're all in it together for the same reason, and we want all of them to be successful, no matter where they are. And so that's how it informs our planning. We're able to understand what they need and what we can work on further.
That's such a fantastic resource that you can even switch classrooms to teach the skills that you feel really strong in. I love hearing that. Okay, so let's recap a little bit about the strategies that Stephanie and Gabriela talked about that they really use to get their students writing. So, Stephanie, which are your top strategies?
Well, again, I'm a big fan of the bell work, just setting that consistency when they come in, and allowing them just to write. Kids just want to write sometimes about what they want to write about. It doesn't always have to be, you know, something literary or, something grammar related or whatever. Again, I think, as Gabriela mentioned, kids learn best sometimes from each other. They know how to talk to each other, and they know how to read each other's writing and things like that. And so that forcing them to do that review without feeling like it's forced, that's kind of a nice trick in there, so they'll actually look at it and revise it and understand how to be a better writer and see other students writing. I teach an AP class with national merit scholars in it, so they're always like, well, we don't want to look at his because his will be awesome. We don't know whose it is, right? It's all anonymized, so they don't know whose they're looking at, and they're just like, hey, that's a great piece of writing, I want to write like that. Giving opportunities for reteaching, improvement based on that data, where what can we do next, where can we go next. And then of course, with my freshmen especially, I need them to be able to identify literary devices and analyze them and talk about them. And if they can do that at the freshman level, then they'll be successful doing it at the senior level. And so it allows me to get them exposed to that early, where it's not something brand new that they're learning their senior year. They have been learning it throughout 3 years leading up to their senior year.
Absolutely. And Gabriela, what are your top strategies?
My big one is similar to how we chunk out for the students. I chunk out my own instructional goals. I begin with the end in mind, and that really helps me to push my students, right? I envision what I think that they're going to be capable of, or I set those goals based off of what, based on state standards, district assessments, other benchmarks, what they're really going to be expected to do at the end of the school year. But then I meet students where they are right now, taking nothing for granted. We don't know where they're coming from. Their background could be anything. You don't know what was missed, and so really finding out where they are right now with those diagnostic assessments, those early writing assignments, and then just narrowing the scope from there. Pick some strategy specifically that you want to work on, and start working on it with the students. You get better by practicing. You have to write every day, and the more that you write, the better that you get. Chunking out those large essays, when students, we hope that all of our students are college bound and on their way to writing these bigger essays. We have to show them how to do that now. We have to show them how to chunk that out, and then providing that impactful rubric based feedback, helpful for me as a teacher, helpful for the students, because whether it's an AP exam or a STAR test here in Texas, or other state standard tests, there's going to be some rubric that they're graded on, and they have to learn how to read those. And as a teacher, I need to be consistent with what I'm looking for across the board. So those are just some of my strategies.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for sharing all of your strategies and resources and what you're really doing in your classrooms. So now we're going to talk about some questions. Some really fantastic questions came up from our folks in the audience. And then I'm also going to ask Regina if you want to share our final poll in a second, but I'm just going to move here for a minute. So if you are curious about using any of the assignments that Gabriela and Stephanie shared and are using in their classroom, they are available and you can use them and start your free trial from this link. You can also create a free account at app.writable.com. If you want to build an assignment with us, that is an offer that is available. We're going to ask some questions that have come up. Okay, so I thought one of the fantastic questions from Jane was, what do you mean by good writing, or you are on the right track? Gabrielle, this came up when you were talking about giving your students feedback, and especially saved comments. And should we give students more concrete comments about why their writing is good or why they might be on track?
Absolutely. I think it's an exercise in your own writing skills, right? Being able to provide that concrete feedback. You definitely want to go beyond, hey, that was good writing, or good job. And really, you can even, like Stephanie said, highlight a specific sentence. Sometimes that's exactly what I do. I would just pick one sentence that really stood out to me, and I'd say, this was powerful, or this was, you created a vivid image here, or this was great diction. I love that you used that word. That is a much better word than sad, to say I was so morose that day. Whatever it is that the students are doing well, I love to leave positive feedback because there's always going to be room for improvement. You can give them tons of feedback on the things that they could be doing better, but I like to give them very specific feedback on what I saw that just stood out. And there's almost always something that you can find that the students did really well because they all have that unique voice. I had a student who wrote the most hilarious story about something that just has to do with the school, like, and their slang, and seeing them use their unique voice was really nice. So that's what I highlighted, and I said, you have a great distinctive voice. Very funny language. I liked it. Made me laugh out loud.
Awesome. Great answer. So Stephanie, there was a question that came up for you about your AP assignment that you showed. Was this assignment something you personally created, or did you get the assignment from Writable, and where did you find it?
I personally created it, so you can add readings. So that was a poem that I had printed out and given to kids prior years. So I just imported that poem and then wrote my own prompt for it. And then used the College Board rubric. But the other nice thing is they actually have released prompts from actual AP exams already on Writable. And so they have them, I believe, for Lang Lit and Gov, all of them. And so some of the actual ones that I've used in the past, I found there. So I intend to use those next semester. They're a little more difficult, but I intend to use those next semester, and they are just ready to go. So it can kind of work both ways. You can upload your own things, because we use poems all the time that aren't on the exam, and they still need to be able to read them like they would be writing for them on the exam. And so that's kind of where that rubric comes in, because it's allowing them to work with that rubric early on to really understand what it is that those readers are looking for when they're grading those essays.
That's a great answer. So all of the AP practice is in Writable, whether you're teaching AP language, there's also AP social studies assignments in there as well. So it's definitely a really helpful resource if you're looking for the most up-to-date rubrics and assignments for AP, or again, wanting to make your own AP assignments and attach those rubrics. Do either of you teach IEP students? Because we did have a question come up about supporting IEP students with their writing, and if either of you have strategies that you use, or if that's just not what you're familiar with, that's totally okay too, and I can take it.
So you mean like working with students that have special education
Mhm.
plans on file?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I definitely work with students like that all the time. And there are so many different tools in Writable that you can provide. There are alternative ways of providing feedback or alternative ways of doing the assignment, especially for like smaller, simpler assignments like the bell ringers and stuff. Being able to include an image, record a video, or provide feedback that's audio for the students so that they don't have to just read it, they can hear it. Students learn in lots of different ways, and they need different accommodations at times, and it's nice to be able to like meet the students really where they're at and give them what they need. Specifically, a lot of things that my students need is more time. They need more time to work on the assignment, and making sure that they are staying on track by like the guide and grade, making sure that they have enough time to write, is one way that I can meet some of those students' needs.
We also, and this may be more elementary or middle school, but in Writable, you can actually get differentiated assignments that have different levels of reading for your students, or that provide scaffolding. So you have sentence starters. Obviously, Gabriela, you scaffold some of your assignments with organizers anyways. That can be really helpful for a student on an IEP. Especially also our English language learners, sentence starters, or having Spanish readings. That also means that when they're doing peer review, students aren't going to know which students had scaffolding and which didn't. So it really helps set them to the same level too. So I think we're at time, and those were some fantastic questions. Um, I just really want to thank Gabriela and Stephanie for coming here and sharing their knowledge with us, and for everybody attending today. This was so fantastic. I loved spending an hour with EdWeb. And if you do have any questions at all, please reach out to us. And I hope everybody has a good holiday season. Thank you.